I'm delighted to welcome the next guest, which is me. So I'm going to switch things up a little bit. And rather than talk just about the M&A, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes as well. So you should be able to see my screen there in the chat. Give us a yes if you can. Brilliant. And all the way through, obviously pop your questions in and we'll come to those at the end. So this is something that I call the scale pyramid, and it's something that we embed into all of the businesses that we acquire and own. If I can figure out how to change the slide. Here we go. Firstly, who am I? Obviously, I've been your host for the last 3 days. Some of you know me, not all of you do. So I am a physiotherapist by profession. And the reason I share that with you is what I mean and what I often say is that I was an accidental business owner. I started my business because I had a passion to help people. I wanted to make people have less pain. This, I believe, is really important because a lot of the business owners that you're going to talk to are also accidental business people. And this is super important because what you remember is that the moment you're learning these new skills, you're learning about M&A and you're picking up an entirely different language, EBITDA, net profit, free cash flow, forecasting, all of these things can be very alien to many of the business owners that you're wanting to build rapport with. So if you go in and on the first meeting, you start asking them for their EBITDA, their net cash flow, all of these things, it can put them on the back foot straight away. They get defensive and it's difficult then to build your rapport. So remember, many of them are accidental business people, just like I was, just like many of you are as well, and treat them that way. So get to know them first. Talk to them about their business, why they started it, why they want to exit, and you'll find building the rapport that much easier. Now, I say there were 3 epiphanies in my life. The first one was when I realized that I could be the best physio in the world and learn all about sporting shoulders, hips, and knee problems. But most people didn't play a lot of sport. They did all, however, go to work. So if I learned about occupational health, I could be a better physio in my head. And that led me to start my first business, which we ultimately sold, which was an occupational health business. The second epiphany was when things started to change. And that was when I realized I could be the best occupational physiotherapist in the world. But if nobody knew I existed, nobody was going to see me and my business wouldn't grow. That led me down the marketing angle. I stopped doing all of my physiotherapy training and just started learning about marketing. And the third epiphany was when I came across M&A and realized you could double, triple, or quadruple the size of your business in a single transaction. Now, I started my journey back in 2017. Since then, I've spent over £250,000 in training. We've done 13 acquisitions, 4 exits. I've had an incredible amount of lessons, some of them you would not believe. And this year we should do 6 more acquisitions alone. So super exciting, and I'm excited to share some of those lessons with you today. Now, the M&A component of all of this, which is what I call the scale pyramid, a lot of people have talked about as well. So if you imagine a pyramid, at the top you've got M&A. You can get lightning fast growth. In the center of the pyramid, you have 2 other mechanisms for business growth, which are super powerful, can magnify your results and your growth, but aren't always used. One of them is strategic partnerships or joint ventures, and the other is bid writing. And we're going to talk a little bit about both of those. And then at the bottom of the pyramid, we've got mindset, marketing, and mentoring. And these are 3 things that can supercharge the results that you get. And I see it as the foundation for M&A. So the first thing for us to consider then, leaving everyone else in this summit to talk about M&A, is the strategic partnership. Now, I'm sure all of you, the same as me, are on LinkedIn, and every single day you'll get someone cold messaging you saying, I can see some synergies between your company and mine. Let's hop on a call, and they send you their Calendly link. What they really mean is they want to sell you something. Now, in their head, that's probably a joint venture. They're selling you something, you benefit, everybody wins. But of course, we all know when you get those messages, you turn off. Now, even if it was a good product, there's a lot that has to happen before you're going to switch. It's often better the devil you know. And in truth, a joint venture or a strategic partnership must be more than just that synergy. It must be mutually beneficial, mutually profitable, and super important, it must be easy. And when a cold message lands on LinkedIn, it's not easy. You don't know who they are, even if it was a bit cheaper and you bought it. What if something goes wrong? You've got a great relationship with your current widget seller. Why would you change? Now, there's a few things that you can do to smooth things out. So one little hack you can use is to have a treasure map. So let's say you find the perfect person to joint venture with. You can have this treasure map set up, and they're basically quick wins. Things that you can do when you partner with them that will quickly give them profitability. Now, the easiest way to imagine this are if somebody white labels a product. So a great example from my own life is our first company. We grew to just under 2 million in revenues with no marketing. We just used strategic partnerships. And what we would do, I was providing occupational physiotherapy. We targeted occupational health companies that were run by nurses. Nurses couldn't oversee and audit a physiotherapist because a physio is diagnostic and a nurse is not. So we targeted them and said, look, we'll provide your physiotherapy. We'll provide all of the auditing and the oversight that you need. We'll charge you this. You can charge whatever you want on the top. That's your profit. And then we get paid after you. So they increased revenue, they increased profit. We made it super easy. And the treasure map was we would have lots of free materials, PDFs, emails that could be sent out to their clients to increase knowledge about the sector. So a great example is that white label, but also affiliates, ambassadors, influencers. All of these can be leveraged to increase your own brand and your own business. And what this treasure map does, as it says on the slide, is it builds trust, it builds momentum, it removes obstacles, and it helps move them towards the next step, which is, of course, the next big client or the next big paycheck. So don't overlook the power of strategic partnerships. The other one I'm just very quickly going to gloss over because it's a big subject and it's often overlooked is bid writing or tender writing. The medical supplies and pharmaceuticals business that we acquired in 2019 had been stuck at about 900,000 in revenue for years. We took over, and in the first year, we grew that to 7.3 million in revenue using tenders. So we applied for government tenders and won and grew that business exponentially. All over the world, companies are tendering for work. In the UK, you can look at contractfinder.gov. In Europe, TED Europa, US, SAM.gov. There are awesome opportunities out there when you look at bid writing. Now let's get down to the foundations of the pyramid, the 3 M's. Let's start with mentorship. As Ken said in the last recording, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Another way or another saying you will have heard is if you show me your 5 friends, 5 closest friends, I will tell you what your salary is, because it generally is the mean or the average of those people. So if you want to be a deal maker, if you want to do a lot of deals, then hang around with other deal makers. If you want to be a millionaire, hang around with 5 millionaires. If you want to be a deal maker, hang around with 5 deal makers. You're going to be the sixth. If you want to be a carpenter, hang out with carpenters. Hang out with 5, you'll probably be the sixth. So to get the most out of mentorship, to get the most out of deal making, you need to surround yourself with this community. And a mentor can be a single person, it can be a group, it can be someone that you know in person, it might be someone that you read or study, it can be books, it can be podcasts. There are all sorts of ways where you can learn from someone. Summits like this, of course, another great way where you can gain insights and knowledge. Engage with this audience as well. So there are 58 people at the moment watching this live, countless more watching this afterwards. Engage with the other people on this summit. Your next partner could be in here. Somebody might find a business that's not quite right for them, but it's perfect for you. And they will only know that if you reach out to them, if you spend time with them, if you get to know what each other are looking for. Next on that foundational base of the pyramid is mindset. A couple of people in the summit have touched upon this, but you really have to armor your mind against rejection. We've talked about it a little bit, but a lot of people come into this space and think they can go on a course, they can read a few books, and they'll probably be a millionaire in a few weeks. It's not like that. You need huge deal flow. If you want to do a deal in a year, you have to have thousands of businesses coming in at the top of your funnel. You're going to disregard probably half of them straight away. You'll have a closer look at the half that remain. Some of them you'll disregard after having a single conversation. Others will go further down the funnel and you'll look at the financials. Lots of them you'll disregard straight away after seeing they're not profitable or they're not running their accounts cleanly. And you can see how the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller. After that, you go to live meetings, making offers, doing due diligence. They won't all go through. It's a big, big and long process. So we need to armor our mind against against rejection, because day in, day out, you're likely to get no's. And depending on who you are, that can be quite difficult. Now, a wonderful book to help you with this is called Go for No. It's tiny, it's about 80 pages, but it gamifies this idea of rejection. And I'll probably not get this quite right, but the guy that wrote it, I think, was a printer salesman or a photocopier salesman. And he talks about in the book that he noticed that other salespeople in the team, it didn't matter when they hit their target, whether it was day 3 or day 28, they never seemed to beat that figure. And it's because after that they coasted, they hit their target, they didn't have to try anymore. And he wanted to try and change that. So his gamified it, remember, was to get 10 no's in a day. So he'd get a no, yes, brilliant, that was the goal. Next, no, yes, fantastic. But here's the thing, if he got a yes, he had to start again straight away. You had to get to no and 10 no's in a day. So you can see this simple kind of reversal of psychology means all of a sudden you're going to push harder, faster, do more outreach, do more deal flow, get more deals into your funnel, and ultimately you're going to be more successful and gain more deals. The other part of mindset, of course, and this has been touched on by a number of people over the last 3 days, is to have an abundance mindset. It's really easy to get sucked into your first deal. It looks great. It's going to change your life. All of a sudden, things don't start to look as good, but you get sucked into it, or deal heat, as some people call it. The best way to get out of this is to appreciate how many opportunities are out there and to have this abundance mindset. There are so many businesses out there on the markets right now. There are even more that aren't yet for sale. So don't get stuck looking at one. Have this abundance mindset. There literally are businesses everywhere. There are opportunities everywhere. And the other thing to bear in mind is to think bigger. If you're looking for businesses that are doing 100,000, 200,000, you're probably buying a job. Look bigger, gain more security, and you can actually change your life. To help with this, I like to follow this little scenario, this little plan. So write down your 10 biggest goals. Now, this can be, of course, about M&A, but it might also be about health. You can't do deals unless your health is optimal. It might be about family. It could be anything that is in your sphere or in your environment. What you're then going to do is you're going to change them from annual goals to 12-week goals. These shorter sprints. If you set yourself a goal to buy one business a year, well, a year seems like a long time. 12 months can seem like an age. So there's not really any pressure to keep doing your deal flow. You're like, yeah, well, it's only March. I've got till next February. I'll sort it out in July. If you have a 12-week goal, all of a sudden there's a little bit more pressure. So you have to commit. You've got to be doing the daily work. And a great thing to do is to work backwards. So set yourself a goal of acquiring a business in 12 weeks and then work back. How am I going to do that? Well, to do that, I've got to be having conversations. How to have conversations? I have to have lead magnets. I've got to be doing outreach. How do I do that? I've got to speak to my VA. I've got to talk to the marketing company. I've got to put in an email campaign. And then from there, you'll work out what your daily tasks are. And these should be non-negotiable. So have them written in your diary, whether that's digital, whether it's paper, put post-it notes on the fridge, on the bathroom mirror, wherever it needs to be, so it keeps driving you forward every single day. Once you've got that, once you've got your goals, once you know what you're going to try and achieve in the next 4 months, it's really important to share those goals with somebody. But it's important to share it with the right people, because some people aren't going to want to see you succeed. Sometimes if you share these goals, I'm going to buy a business doing 1 million, 5 million, 10 million. I'm going to grow a group of companies, an ecosystem doing 100 million. Whatever your goal is, some people are going to say, oh yeah, what, not good enough for we, are we? Right, yeah, gonna change, are you? Can't be friends anymore. And they'll be really down on you. So it's important to share this with the right people. And of course, this community is that. Put your goals in the WhatsApp group. Put your goals in the Facebook groups that you're all in. And the people in here will champion you. They're rooting for you. They're pushing you forward. And importantly, if they find deals that fit your buy box and fit your criteria, they're going to send them to you. So it's more likely you're going to succeed. Next, discipline. I mentioned before, you should have non-negotiables that you have every single day. And that can be, you want to send 10 emails to different businesses. It might be you want to speak to one broker a day. It could be that you're going to do 50 press-ups, whatever it might be for your goal. But applying it every day with discipline is important. And the final thing to add on there, of course, as well, is apply extreme ownership. Super important that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Elon Musk doesn't have any more hours than we do. Carl Allen doesn't have any more hours than we do. Jeremy Harbour doesn't have any more hours than we do. Take responsibility for your results and put the work in. You will be rewarded for it. Finally, on the base of the pyramid, we've got marketing. And we're not talking here about your social media campaigns, the leaflets you put through somebody's door, through someone's door. What I want to talk about now is personal brand, because I think personal brand is one of the most important things in getting a deal done. Personal brand, so who you are, authentically who you are, is part of building rapport. And what's important to remember here is the image you portray should be genuine, it should be honest, it should be trustworthy, and you should have social proof. So if you say to someone, a potential seller, great to meet you, my name is Ross, I'm an expert in M&A and I've got a history of engineering. Well, if they go onto your Facebook account, what are they going to see? If they go onto your LinkedIn account, what are they going to see? If they go to your email and have a look and you've got a Gmail, what does that say? If they go to your website, what is it going to say? So it should be congruent. And the reason this works is because of something called the zero moment of truth. When I learned about the zero moment of truth, it completely changed the way I approached my deal making, and it completely approached the way that I approached business. The zero moment of truth is a massive piece of research that's been carried out by Google. It spent hundreds of millions of pounds to work out what moves someone to buy or to take action. And in the case of M&A, what moves someone to sell their business. Now, pre-internet, the zero moment of truth for most transactions was 3, which meant it took 3 contacts with someone before they felt like they trusted you enough to buy your stuff. An example of this would be a leaflet would drop through your postbox. Maybe it was for a new Indian restaurant. First time that dropped through your letterbox, you looked at it, it's junk mail, screwed it up, put it in the bin. The second time it dropped through your letterbox, subconsciously, you recognized it, you weren't sure why, but it was junk mail, you scrumpled it up, put it in the bin. The third time it came through your letterbox, subconsciously now you recognized it. You recognized the colors, you recognized the logo, you recognized the pictures. Because you recognized it, you trusted it, and if you were hungry and you fancied an Indian takeaway, you might have called that number. The internet then came along, and all of this changed because straight away you could log onto your computer and you could research that Indian restaurant, and it would show 1 star. A rat ran around through the kitchen, and all of these reviews. So all of a sudden, things changed, and it wasn't just about building that initial trust and momentum, it was about keeping people interested. And what Google have found is it takes now an average of 11 touch points to build that trust before someone will buy your thing or, remember, sell you their company. And what's fascinating is that is 11 touch points across 5 different mediums. And in fact, Dan, who was talking yesterday, he alluded to the zero moment of truth, and he said it was 20 touch points before somebody trusted you enough to buy your stuff or sell you their company. The 5 mediums is really interesting as well, though. So what I mean by that is if you send someone a letter and they receive your letter, that's 1 touch point, 1 medium. If they call you to say, hey, I've got your letter, that's a second medium. It's a phone and a second contact. If you only ever contact that seller via phone, from there on out, you can build the number of contacts, but you can't increase the number of mediums. So what I do to help build that trust is move people to different mediums. Send them an email, send them a WhatsApp, send them a text message, have a Zoom, have a face-to-face. All of these different things help build credibility and trust by moving someone through the zero moment of truth. Now, the fastest way I've found to do this is if I approach someone via a letter, I want to replicate what they can see on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a powerful, powerful tool for M&A. So a lot of people will have seen a fairly generic letter that says, hey, I'm interested in buying businesses in your sector. If you're interested, you call. I send one of those letters out, but I attach to it my bio. My bio has my photograph at the top, and it's a photo of me walking my dog in a woolly hat. I'm always in a cap, a hat, shorts, t-shirt. I never wear a suit unless I can help it. And I send that picture on purpose because I want them to get an idea of who I am. I'm not a corporate lawyer that's trying to screw them over and take their business for nothing. I'm a genuine person who enjoys walking my dog out in the country. I'm encouraging or engendering trust. Under my picture, it's got my contact details. So straight away, they can call me. They can email me. My email, of course, is linked to one of my businesses, so they can vet the business straight away. My bio goes into who I am, my achievements to date. It goes through the acquisitions that I've done so far and the group structure that we have. Now, you might be thinking that's okay for you, but I haven't done an acquisition. That's absolutely fine. You do have skills. You have a lot of things that have happened on your journey that will help build trust. Talk about the high points of your career. Talk about the reasons why they want to engage with you, because of the leadership skills you've got, because of the communication skills you've got, the marketing skills you've got. Talk about the M&A knowledge that you've got. So building that trust through your bio, again, gives them reason to move towards the zero moment of truth. After that, in my bio, it says who my deal team is. It lists the accountant. It lists the lawyers. It lists corporate finance advisors. These people can all be vetted. They can be checked. They can go to their website. It's building people again or moving them towards the zero moment of truth. Underneath that, it's got my websites of all the businesses that I own. Underneath that, it's got the books that I've written. So you can see how I've built up this trust, moving someone towards the zero moment of truth. I encourage all of you, and in our little book of big deals, in there is going to be an example of how I build out my bio. So everyone on this call will get one of those. But for me, these foundations, marketing, mindset, and mentoring, are the foundations to doing deals. If you don't have the right assistants, it's going to be harder. Assistants can collapse time. If you haven't got a congruent personal brand, it's much, much harder to build rapport. And if you haven't got the right mindset, it's very easy to get distracted, to get disgruntled, to get disheartened, and you're not going to put the time into creating the deal flow and getting these deals over the line. That is what I call the scale pyramid. At the top of the pyramid, we've got M&A. In the middle of the pyramid, we've got joint ventures and tenders. Do not ignore those. They're powerful ways to grow your business. And at the base of the pyramid, we've got marketing, mindset, and mentorship. And I could go on and on and on about these subjects, but I'd love it if anyone had any questions that they could ask. I'm happy to go into those about anything I've said there or about any of the deals that we've done. So I hope that was helpful. Most important thing is take imperfect action. Imperfect action always beats perfect inaction. Hopefully that was helpful. It's been my pleasure to present that to you, and let's go over to some questions. Chris, tenders and bid writing. In the US, is that grant writing or government contracts? Yes, it is. And actually, in the US, there's quite a lot of things that you can do to supercharge this as well. So as a woman in the US, you will get higher scoring to when you bid on a government contract. So if your business came up, so if you were 51% owned by a woman in America, you will score higher than a business that is 51% owned by a man. Veterans as well also score really highly. Also on top of that is disability as well. So all of these things can help you score more highly in the US. It's not quite the same in the UK. Gillian, when bid writing, do you need security clearance in most instances when applying for government contracts? It depends on which area of the government it is. So we've won contracts with nuclear power facilities in the UK. We've won contracts with police forces and ambulance trusts. And yes, we needed clearance for those. Equally, we've won tenders with local governments that didn't need any such clearances. But I do encourage you to have a look at that. Daniel says you're one person away from your first million or billion. Absolutely, yeah. The power of the 5 people around you, really is astonishing. Unless you ask questions, unless you ask for introductions, unless you ask for help, it's really, really difficult, to find out whether that person next to you could give you that. But yeah, very good point, Daniel. And also, what have you learned about yourself after completing your first successful acquisition? So that's a great question, Daniel. I was talking about a few people with this in the networking earlier, but when I first started learning about this, it took me 2 years to do my first deal. I would second guess myself. I would value companies and then wonder whether I would undervalued it, whether I'd overvalued it. What if I paid over the odds for it? What if I offended them because my offer was too low? All of these things would go through my mind. And ultimately, it took me 2 years to do the first deal. But what I learned after that was it was much, much easier than I thought. And what I learned about myself is that I'd just been getting in my own way. So it comes back to what I said before, which is take imperfect action. You can go on all the courses, you can read all the books, you can absorb all the information from podcasts, but unless you're out there taking action, I can absolutely guarantee you will never get a single deal done. Charlie says, what are the examples of effective lead magnets for M&A leads? So there are a variety of ways that you can attract businesses into your funnel. You can put adverts into trade press. So if I give you an example of my own industry as a health professional, there are journals and there are trade magazines that are read by all professionals. You could put an advert in the back of there and say you're looking to buy businesses. Facebook works really well if you want to do an advert, and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, as a few people have mentioned, is an absolute superpower for finding deals. So whether that's a lead magnet or whether it's you attracting them through that work, perhaps is slightly different, but Sales Navigator is an incredible tool. So I'd encourage you to do that. What we do is we outsource that. So we have a fantastic team that work on that day in, day out, finding leads, nurturing the leads, and then bringing them through into the pipeline. So hopefully that was helpful, but Sales Navigator, LinkedIn, I'm a really big fan of. Christian, how many outreach to get a deal? Your experience on average, how would the average funnel look for you? How many outreach, how many first meetings, second meetings? Okay, yeah, so I literally wasn't joking earlier when I said, if you want to get a deal, you've got to have 1,000 coming in at the top. It's probably not far off that. I spoke to someone recently and they were really disheartened. They said, we've been looking at deals for nearly a year and we haven't done a deal yet. I said, well, how many deals have you looked at? So we're looking at a deal a week and we still haven't done a deal. it's like a deal a week. You need to be looking at like a deal an hour. You need to be discounting deals every single day to find the successful ones. And by successful, I mean the ones that you want to have a meeting with. A lot of them you're going to get rid of very, very quickly because the financials aren't right. I mean, we discount a lot of businesses very quickly on all sorts of things. If they've got too many shareholders, for instance, I generally don't speak to a business if it has more than 3 shareholders because it's really hard to get that many people to agree to anything. So I look for under 3 shareholders. I look for businesses where the business owner or the majority shareholder is at least 57 years old, because 57 is the average age where people will start thinking about retirement. So there's lots of ways you're going to discount them very quickly. On to the first meeting. The first meeting for me is about building trust. It's building rapport. I honestly believe no small business has been sold without rapport. It's the most important thing, without a doubt. And in that first business, I literally say, I haven't got an agenda. I've just got an intention to find out if we can work together and an intention to find out if I can help you. And it kind of disarms the situation, because remember, these people have often not sold a business. It can be a very stressful time for them. So I just go in with an intention to see if I can help. The second meeting is where you will go into a little bit more depth. And after that would be then when I'll actually then have a look at the financials, start asking more questions. Ultimately, you then want to make an offer, the offer. And again, I've got a way of presenting this. I'll say, in all the deals we've done, one of the deals, our offer was the same as their valuation. So it's super easy to get that over the line. The other deals we've done, our offer and their valuation were close enough where we were able to continue the negotiation and find a win-win. And I pre-frame it and I say, but I have had hundreds of conversations when our valuation and their valuation was so different, we just agreed to wish each other well. So I'm putting this information in at a very early stage to let them know that sometimes we're going to disagree. And I also pre-frame the type of valuation that we're going to give as well. So hopefully that's helpful. You need huge, huge deal flow. We do explain the bid writing process once more and the advantage in doing them. Yeah, so all businesses of a certain size, and certainly some in the private sector and all areas of the government, aren't allowed just to award contracts to people that they like. Although, of course, we all know that does happen. They have to tender the opportunity, which means it'll be published somewhere online. It could be a commercial cleaning contract. It could be a contract for medical supplies. It could be a contract for ambulances. It can be a contract for all sorts of things, but that will have to be published somewhere. And that gives an opportunity to external private companies to tender for it, which basically means you need to fill in a lot of documents, submit that by a certain date, and those documents or your answers are scored. Typically, 60% of the decision will be based on your price, and 40% will be based on the answers that you give. There are things that move that, as I said to you before. In the US, for example, a female operated company will carry more weight. A disabled veteran carries even more weight. So there are all these things that can influence it, but hopefully that's helpful. Great question. Yeah, what sort of deals have I done in the recent past, and in what sector? So last year, the last 2 deals we did last year. One was a bolt-on. It was the 4th domiciliary care company that we bolted into that particular group. All the deals we've done in that particular sector were LBOs. So we paid 50% on day one, and then we deferred the rest of the payment over a period of time. So that was that one. The other one that we did late last year was a medical device company. So this was super interesting. We had our finance all set up, ready to go. and at the last minute it was pulled because obviously we've lived through quite an unstable geopolitical time. So some of these funds will disappear from time to time. That's what happened to us, and we had 2 weeks to secure this deal. So I went out to the network and we secured 9 investors that put the money in for the day one payment. So we needed to raise 600,000 in 2 weeks, which we did to get the deal over the line. The total for the deal was 1.2 million, which we're going to pay the remainder over 5 years. That business this year will do, it was doing 1.7 million. This year it'll do 3.5 million. We've got conversations with 3 businesses about an acquisition. And next week I have a meeting in London with a private equity house that are in this space. So I've already shown them the business and I've asked them, what do I need to do to get this on your radar? So they've said, basically, you need to get to this size in this amount of time and we'll buy it from you. So we're starting with the end in mind. We're having these conversations about which companies to sell to, even when we've only just bought the company. So that's a really nice one. It sells microscopy into universities, research establishments, into the NHS. Ray says, what is the one thing that you did during an acquisition, whether during negotiation or after, that you would never do again? What was the one thing we would do that I would never do again? In the very first acquisition that we did, we obviously were very inexperienced. We made an adjustment for the business owner that was leaving. So it was another physio practice, similar to my own. And we looked at the business owner. The business owner was seeing patients. And we said, okay, well, you're being paid X. The replacement cost is Y. And we negotiated the offer based on that. But when we took over, we realized that he was actually doing about 60 hours a week. So we should have replaced him with 1.5 other physiotherapists. So the profit was less when we took over. So that's something that we'd never repeat. We always do a lot of due diligence on exactly how much work does that person do. And the business that we're looking at in Scotland at the moment, a really nice mobility company. We've actually heavily adjusted the EBITDA there, and we've got 3 people replacing the 2 current business owners. So hopefully that was helpful, Emre. Chris says, if you have time, you mentioned the importance of considering who you discuss your plans and goals with, because not everyone wants to see you succeed. I found this to be true. Any tips on identifying or communicating with the right people? The right people are probably in this room. They're people on the same journey as you, I would say, Chris. They're people that share your vision. They share a similar goal. They want to grow. They want to scale. They want to help more people, which is fundamentally what drives a lot of us. Want to give back. So I would say gravitate to people who are in the same groups as you, and you can't go too far wrong. Do still do your due diligence, of course. I have heard some horror stories over the years where people have leapt into bed, not literally, with someone. They've done joint venture very, very quickly, later to discover that person wasn't to be trusted. They were taking money out of the business, all sorts of things. So do your due diligence before going that far. However, in the groups, you will find people that are on the same path as you. Tony says, the volume dropped when you were talking about your letter and your bio. Did you say that you'll send both as one attachment? So in LinkedIn, you don't need to send your bio because LinkedIn is your bio. When I send someone a letter, I actually attach a printed copy of my bio, which is essentially not that dissimilar to my LinkedIn. It's got my photograph, it's got my contact details, it's got the highlights of what we've been up to over the last few years, which is quite similar to LinkedIn. Lorenzo says, thank you so much, Ross. Super helpful. How is building a personal brand different from building a corporate brand? So the business is not dependent on you personally. Yeah, this is a great question. So your personal brand has to sit outside your business. So it's not tied to it. So my personal brand is very much about health. It's about M&A, like the health and business person, if you like. So my personal brand can be ratified, it can be verified, it can be found online. However, it's not my name above the door. So my name isn't associated with any particular business. So you can build both of them together, but your personal brand wants to be the one that can be easily verified and checked. So when you're calling a business owner and saying you are going to buy their company, they need to be able to check you out online. I would say. Christian says, what was your deal team for your first deal and what is it now? So for our first deal, our current accountant is still with us. He's an incredible chap. He's in our little black book that you will get after this summit. An amazing chap. Our lawyers have changed over the years. And what I've found is it's really important to build your team who understand you as a person. And to give you a bit more context to that. So I personally have I'm happy with a healthy amount of risk. When we did our first deal, the lawyer, I remember one particular conversation actually, where he was going on about all of these things that may well happen in the future. And in my head, it sounded like he said something like, in 7 years, if the 12th of January happens to be a Thursday and the moon aligned with Pluto, this could happen. I was like, I don't care about all of these tiny little things that might happen. I want to get this deal done. So the lawyers that we use now, they understand me. They understand the level of risk that I'm healthy with, and I employ them to make sure that I'm not falling into any traps. So they will quickly skirt over some of the smaller points, and then they will quickly get through to the big points. So that saves me a lot of time. So really important to choose your deal team for people who really understand you and what you're trying to achieve. Anthony says, for our first deals, is it recommended to buy a local business in the country we reside? That's probably a decision that only you can make. However, I would say it probably makes it easier. It's easier to build rapport. It's easier to visit. It's easier to manage on an ongoing basis. So I would say ultimately it's up to you, but there are probably a lot of advantages to doing that. Emery says, what measures did you take to increase the turnover of your medical device business? Great question. And it goes back to the scale pyramid again. So we've won contracts with one of the largest suppliers of microscopy. That's worth $1 million a year. We're going for other tenders all the time with universities, with hospitals. So by just putting that one thing in, we've doubled the size of the company. We're then looking at M&A, the top of the pyramid, and we have 3 conversations ongoing with that. So we're basically implementing the scale pyramid. On top of that, we've overhauled the website. We've changed the way that we're marketing in there as well. Sachin said, you mentioned you've had many mentors in life. Would you please talk about that journey, when you started, and what were the reasons for choosing each mentor? Really good question. My first mentors were, of course, in healthcare. My next mentors were in marketing, and then my later mentors were in M&A. I chose the mentors based on what I wanted to learn. So obviously I wanted to learn about health, then I wanted to learn about marketing, and then I wanted to learn about M&A. And I have always chosen mentors for 2 reasons. Firstly, have they done what I want to achieve? There are lots of mentors out there. There are lots of people who will sell you a course who've never done it. So there are lots of people out there talking about M&A who have never acquired a business. They've simply read a book and now profess to be an expert. So one, they have to have done it. They have to be where I want to be. And the second thing, which I think is equally as important, is I've got to like them. I've got to like them. I've got to enjoy spending time with them. I've got to communicate in a similar way. I think we all learn in different ways. So they have to communicate in a way that responds and I can respond to and learn from. So hopefully that's helpful. Choose someone that you like, choose someone further ahead than you. And yeah, I don't think you can go too far wrong with that. Tony says, what qualities do you look for in a business partner other than the skill set you may not have? So ultimately for me, honesty. Honesty is so important for me. On top of that, I'm a really big believer in the importance of communication. I put a lot of weight into people's communication styles. Someone sends me an email that has, that is really well crafted, that sticks in my mind. Because when we're talking to business owners or employees or team members or members of the deal team, getting your point across eloquently, often swiftly, is super important, because it means that you don't have any grey areas. You don't have any areas where there was some miscommunication. So for me, honesty and really good communication are two things that that are really important qualities for me. Last two questions, and then we're on to our final speaker, who's Chris Moore. Did you have any business partners on your first deal? If you would do it again, who would you choose as a business partner? So I didn't have a partner in my first deal. It was a bolt-on to our existing business. And from a business partner perspective, I think, as I said to Tony there, choosing business partners now based on their communication and on their honesty and integrity. And of course, as Tony pointed out, sector knowledge, of course, has a big role to play. Joe said, to develop a personal brand in M&A, transitioning from a corporate job, does that mean I need to create a new LinkedIn account, a new Facebook account? No, definitely not. You can just alter the one that you've got and actually build on your current journey. So build on the current experience that you've got. Your corporate background, your corporate job will create a lot of weight. Okay, sorry, Michael just sent me a message there. Your corporate background can be utilized as a tool. So you can use that in crafting your journey, crafting your bio. So some of the skills that you have, I don't know exactly what it is you do in the corporate world, but a lot of those skills are transferable into business. So pick out the ones that are helpful, turn that into your new LinkedIn profile, which actually helps to build confidence in the mind of the seller. So it could be that you're an accountant and a CPA, and actually an awful lot of business is finance. So you could talk about your background in corporate finance, the deals that you've been involved with, the amount of profitability you've driven into your current business, and this is what you're going to inject into your new target acquisition. Oliver says, what do you have in place to ensure you don't become an operator of the business once closing? Is there a specific job function for that, or does it vary? So I'm super lucky because I have a great deal team. I mean, we employ about 150 people through the different businesses. 4 of those people work at group level. So I have an amazing group MD, have operations, finance and marketing that all skirt across the top of the businesses. So I can honestly tell you, I very rarely set foot in any of the businesses that I own. I have a monthly meeting, a board meeting for many of them, and others I'll speak as and when I need to. But really, I'm just working on the strategy side of things. So I'm just talking to funders, financiers, brokers, investors, other business owners that I want to acquire, merge with, sell to. I'm talking to private equity houses. These are the people that can really change the trajectory of our business and can help. So the day-to-day operations are handled by the current team of the business or our current team, and that leaves me free. So hopefully that answered your question. Christian said that yes, so there was an option to get the little, I think we called it the Little Black Book of Big Deal Making. So there is an option to basically take that as I think it was an upsell on this particular summit, and in there you get our accountants, our lawyers, you get a list of 350 family offices in the US, you get 2,500 venture capital firms in the world as well. So all of those things are available. And final question from Daniel. Curious to know, when you were knighted in Malta and Romania, what kind of doors do you think that will open, and what kind of mentor would you want to learn from next? So I have been, this is a funny story for anyone that doesn't know, but I was in Abu Dhabi recently, and there's a gentleman that I've wanted to mentor me for many years, and I came out and said, Rick, when are you going to mentor me? He said, I can't, Ross, I'm too busy, but I can nominate you to become a Knight of Malta. There, that should open doors, and you should find a mentor there. There are lots of people, who can help. So all of that happened. I'm on my way to Malta in April, being inaugurated by the Prince and Princess of Romania. And I hope in there to find some people who are further ahead than me in business, who will be able to share some of that knowledge and wisdom as a mentor. So hopefully that's helpful, Daniel. Thank you very much for all of those questions. It's genuinely been a pleasure to share some of what I call the scale pyramid. If anyone is interested in finding out more, then of course, don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I'm on there every single day. So if I'm not ready, feel free to reach out. Happy to hop on a call. Thank you very much, Tony. Chad, we access those. If you drop us a message over to Michael, we can help you out with that. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to nip off backstage. We've got Chris's presentation next, which is the final one of the day. Ian, thank you. Brilliant. Great feedback. I'll speak to you at the end, and of course, hang around for the networking as well. I'm going to be sitting on some of those tables. I'm going to